Step one. The first step is blowing bubbles. Now, understand that the first 3 steps we're going to teach you are interchangeable. So every child's going to learn a little bit differently. It doesn't mean you have to start with blowing bubbles. I tend to like to, just because it's a very simple step. It's something that you can practice with your child in the bathtub even. So one of those things that just getting the child down to the water can be frightening for some children if they've had a traumatic experience, falling in when they were younger, that type of thing. So be aware of that and be understanding. So you never want to force the child to do something that they're afraid of. So you got to keep it fun, you got to keep it lighthearted, exciting. So one thing that I'll do for children that are afraid of the water or afraid of getting their face close to the water is I'll bring the water up to them. So I'll scoop water in my hands and then I'll literally bring it up to their mouth so they can practice blowing out the candle. So for example, I would say, hey, let's see, have you ever blown out a candle on a birthday cake? Most kids have said yes. So I say, we're going to practice that. And I'm going to bring the water to you, and I just want you to go, just practice blowing out of your hand. So pretty simple. And then gradually start up with the water high, and then I'll gradually lower it to closer to the pool. Eventually you get it so that they're blowing out the candle in the pool, not just out of your hands, okay? So that's the first step that I like to do depending on where the child's at, if they're afraid of the water. Otherwise, if they don't have fear of getting their face close to the water, we'll just start here and say, hey, we're gonna start out with you blowing bubbles. Some kids get that automatically, some don't. So if they understand blowing bubbles, great. It's a done deal, easy to practice that. If they don't, there's a couple things that I'll do. Say, okay, just like I mentioned, blow out the candle. If they get it, great. If not, the next step that I lead them into is humming. So I'll ask them, do you have a favorite song? Sure, I like this song, whatever. Great. Then I'll say, okay, well, let's hum your song in the water. Just to make it kind of fun. Kids like to have noise and music and things of that nature. So if you can bring that into the water, they tend to like it and grasp the concepts a little bit easier. Once they've gotten blowing bubbles out of their mouth, the next step is to get them to blow out of their nose. So one thing that I tell the parents is you never want your child to be holding their nose. One, it restricts their hands. It's a bad habit to get into, plus it's really hard to break. And it's really hard to swim if you're just using one hand. So don't let them hold their nose. Teach them how to blow out of their nose. And what I like to tell them is, pretend like you have a Kleenex, and they'll first ask them, have you ever had to blow your nose? They said yes. And then I'll say, well, we're going to blow our nose into our Kleenex here. So we're going to put it right next to the water, and we're going to blow our nose into our water Kleenex. So going through this process, and then we practice this over and over and over. Once they get that, then I say, okay, that was really good. Do you think you can put your eyes in the water? And sometimes they're like, I don't know, this, that, whatever. I say, I bet you can. So we play some games, maybe put some things on the steps, have them blow bubbles, get one of the dive rings, that type of thing, just to make it fun. Then say, all right, let's see if you can go under and just put your eyes in the water really quickly. And so if they can, great. This is one of those points where you don't really want to force them to do it if they're not ready yet. And there's a couple cues you can look at. So some kids don't want to do things just because they're being stubborn. Others are legitimately afraid. So a couple cues that I use to tell if they're actually afraid or if they're just being stubborn is I look at their eyes. Are their pupils dilated? That means they're going to fight or flight. They're really panicked. I'll pay attention to their heart rate. Does it feel like their heart rate's speeding up? So paying attention to this, understanding your child, and knowing how to work with them, how to keep it fun, the games. Once you get them to just, even if it's a quick, just eyes in the water and then back up, that's totally fine. So for example, if this is all they do, totally good, totally good. Just continue to work with these steps until they're getting more comfortable getting eyes in the water. And then practice, once they get comfortable with that, practice blowing bubbles with their whole face in the water. One thing you do not want to do is give them a towel after they get water in their eyes. And this goes for in the bath, shower, whatever. Let them get used to blinking their eyes. Wiping their eyes is okay. Just make sure they're not using a towel.
Kids love the